Hi there, you are listening to the Play Squad Pod with Katie Harkness, coaching conversations with women just like you. Here I'm going to dive into the real life conversations that I am having with the women in my squad right now. They're all working to transform their lives through their health, their fitness, and nutrition. And why am I sharing this with you? Well, many of the challenges that I see with them are exactly the things that you might be going through right now. So I am sharing that knowledge and experience with you to help set you on your journey as well. I want you to be the main character in the movie of your life story rather than sitting on the sidelines and being an extra, I suppose. So this is for you. If there's anything that you would like me to cover in the future, then just let me know. But we're going to dive straight into it. This week, I am covering two topics. The first of which is, I'm just going to sit up a little bit because I've realised that I'm really low in the screen. The first of which is all about adding protein into your diet without feeling like you were going to compromise the calories that you might have to play with. And this very much cropped up from a conversation that I've been having with a client this week. And the second topic is all about the fear of injury when it comes to strength training. So, first up, the actual statement that came from a client was all about how adding more protein into their diet was going to feel excessive for them. And that was very much because they are eating in a calorie deficit at the moment that is in line with their goals. And they felt that if they were to increase the protein in their diet, then that was just going to jeopardize the calorie deficit and I suppose range target that they were sitting in and aiming for. They thought it was going to compromise their goals and it wouldn't chime with their goals at all. And I do get it. I understand how the idea of adding more protein, actually more of anything into your diet, especially if you're on a bit of a fat loss journey, can feel daunting because you're worried about increasing your calorie intake. But can you really afford not to work towards increasing your protein when you think about all of the benefits that there are and the importance of it? And I'm just going to run through these very quickly, top line them. And then I want you to have a think about whether you can afford not to think about having and working towards getting additional protein in your diet. So the importance and benefits of protein: maintaining muscle mass. That is going to help support your metabolism. Don't know why that's so hard to say all of a sudden. So maintaining muscle mass, that is going to help support your metabolism. Increased protein is going to improve your bone health. It's going to help regulate your hormones. It's going to support your skin health. And it's going to help maintain your energy across the course of a day. It's going to enhance and repair your tissue. It's going to help build a strong immune system, and it can help aid weight management by being satiating. The list goes on and on and on. Now, the positive is that I have more and more and more women coming to me and talking about how they want to increase their protein intake. So knowledge about increasing protein is definitely improving, and that can only be a good thing, and that is absolutely great. But the knowledge and the practical application, quite often, if it was a Venn diagram, would sit as kind of two circles not intersecting or overlapping in any capacity. So the knowledge and the practical application often don't sit hand in hand. And that is why women will come and have a talk with me and a chat with me and a consultation with me to understand how they might be able to take what they know they need to do and actually do it in reality. So I'm going to take you through some practical steps about how you can make changes to increase protein in your diet, how you can go about that. Because it's more than just saying, let's increase the protein. It's working out how you can do it and where you can go about it. So before you make any changes, I think it's always a great thing to have a baseline. So it's essential to understand your current diet and where you are. So the first thing I would do is take a week to track everything that you eat. Now, there are plenty of apps that make this easy to do, but I'm going to say to you, just use pen and paper. Use pen and paper, because do you know what? When it comes to trying to work out how you can make changes, having it in front of you written down in black and white is going to make it so much easier. So spend a week where you track everything that you are eating. And then you're going to look for patterns. You are going to look for patterns across the day in terms of meals where, and probably meal times where you're already getting a decent amount of protein, but there might be meals and meal times where actually protein is lacking. Okay? And that's broadly speaking what we're going to do. Work out what it is that you're eating already, and then work out where you're doing well and where you could do better. So write down and log everything that you eat for each meal, and note down the protein sources for each of those meals, even the small ones. And identify meals that are high on carbs and fats, but perhaps lower on protein. Okay, that's the first thing that you're going to do. Then, once we've worked that out, we can start identifying potential swaps that you might want to make. So looking for those opportunities where you can take a lower protein meal or snack and turn it into a higher protein meal or snack. That's the first thing that you're going to do as part of this process. Once you have got your meal diary for the week, your food diary for the week written down, we're going to look to see where we can make those swaps. Now, often it isn't a wholesale change, but it's a little bit of a dink on what you're already doing. So I'm going to give you some examples of what those little dinks might be. So your current choice for lunch might be a salad. You might have croutons on it. There might be a bit of a kind of quite a rich dressing on that salad. Now, what you could simply do is you would look at that and you go, actually, that's probably quite a low protein meal that I've got there, but I've probably got quite a lot of fats within that and quite a lot of carbs within that because of the croutons and the dressing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to look to reduce those carbs and those fats, and I'm going to increase my protein. So you might add in some grilled chicken or some chickpeas or some tofu, whatever your food preferences are. And in order to make space within that meal, within your calories, you're going to basically swap out the croutons and maybe the dressing for a lighter dressing, or remove that dressing completely, thereby making that meal that you had richer in protein, and you've made space for the calories for that protein as well. So that's the first example we might do. Another example, and this is quite a common one I find, is a pasta dish that has got a tomato sauce. Okay? And you look at that and you go, oh God, there really is no protein in that whatsoever. What can I do to make that more protein fueled? So you could add in some lean beef mince into that tomato sauce. You could add in some turkey mince into that tomato sauce, thereby injecting it with some protein. Now, in order to create the space, the caloric space to do that, you might just reduce how much pasta you are having as part of that meal. So you're offsetting in that way. So those are some kind of simple dinks that you might make. Other meals, it might be that you need to kind of have a total switch. So for example, your current choice for breakfast might be cereal and milk. And yet there is a bit of protein in that with the milk, but actually breakfast might be that area where you can really inject some protein into your meal. So it might be a total swap. I'm going to swap out my cereal with milk and I'm going to bring something else in. I'm going to bring in some Greek yogurt. I'm going to bring in some oats. I'm going to bring in some protein powder. I'm going to bring in a little bit of milk or soy milk or coconut milk, something like that, and I'm going to mix it together and I'm going to make some overnight oats. And that is going to be a really protein-rich meal for you to have. Or it might be that you look at your snacks and you're like, actually, my snacks have got no protein in them. I'm having snacks a couple of times a day. And actually, that would be a simple and easy space for me to switch one thing out and bring another thing in. So you might be having a packet of crisps or whatever it might be. You could bring in some hard-boiled eggs, some spinach, protein smoothie, whatever it might be, to inject some more protein into your day by having a wholesale swap. So that's the first thing you can do. And I've already mentioned this, but thinking about using protein-rich foods as substitutes for some of the carbs and fats that you've already got in your diet. So, for example, as I said, replace some of the pasta in your dish with turkey mince or beef mince or lentils, or perhaps swap out some of the cheese in a salad for some tofu or some chicken. Just think about what are the swaps that you could make. And the simplest way that I like to think about it is that for every meal and snack, I don't know why I was going to say smack then, for every meal and snack, the first building block that you are going to aim for, the very first thing that you think about going into your meal is the protein. So you will ask yourself the question, what protein is going into this meal? And then you build everything else around it. That is the foundational piece. And then you build the rest of your meal around it. So then you're not adding protein on top, but you're starting with it as your essential and you're building out from there. That is flipping around how we think about building meals by going, what is the protein first? Now, planning and balancing your meals is absolutely key. So if you include a bit of protein, some protein in every single one of your meals, it doesn't mean that you have to eat more. It just means that you shift your focus. So think about shifting your focus when it comes to your meal planning. Now, I have my go-to protein sources, and I think this is a really helpful thing to have. Your go-to protein sources that I know, or you can mix and match with pretty much anything, but also have a versatility so that you don't feel like you're eating the same thing every single day, every single time. So my go-tos are chicken, turkey mince, tinned tuna, eggs, Greek yogurt, lentils, chickpeas, oats. Those are kind of my go-to protein sources. And I mix and match these, particularly kind of the more savoury protein sources, so the chicken, the turkey mince, the tuna. I will mix and match those with different kind of veggies and grains to keep my meals interesting, to keep them tasty, to keep them different most days. The building blocks are very simple, but the taste profile can be very, very different. So yesterday I had a tin of tuna, I had some green lentils, I had some cucumber, I had some, what else did I have? Some tomato, I had some salad leaves, and in total, popped it into a tracker to see what it was, where it came out at. It was 400 calories, it was 30 grams of protein, and it was evenly balanced across protein, carbs, and fats. Today, I will probably have some tuna, some salad leaves, some cucumbers, some tomatoes, but I'll probably have some couscous instead. And it will be a different kind of flavour of tuna. I have tuna infusions. It will be a different flavour of couscous, and the flavour profile will taste very different to what I had yesterday. That keeps things interesting for me, but I've got my go-to things that I know that are going to work and I can mix and match. Back to how you can change things up. So I'm sitting down tomorrow with a client and we are going to go through their food diary. They have been filling this in for the last 3 or 4 days. They've been writing this down on paper, and we're going to sit down with that sheet of paper in front of us and we're going to work out the things that we can change. So we're going to look at it and go, which are the meals that are low protein at the moment? Which are the meals where we're doing quite well from a protein point of view? Okay, for the low protein meals, what are the things that we can change? Does it need to be a wholesale? I'm going to remove that and pull something else in. or am I going to dial down some elements of that particular meal or snack in order to pull more protein into it? Now, it's going to be largely driven by her identifying the things that can be swapped out, the things that can be managed, the things that can be changed from a protein point of view, because ultimately it's going to be her that is eating this, so it has to chime with her likes, dislikes, cooking abilities, time that she has, all of those different things. But the secret to going through the process is that we're going to have it on a sheet of paper, and we're going to actually be able to go through it and scribble things down and cross things out and change things around and underline things and highlight stuff. And I think seeing everything in black and white is so helpful as you're going through this process. And in sessions that I have with clients like that, I much prefer working with pen and paper because it just feels a lot more organic and real, and I'm not trying to find bits of data that's hidden away in an app. So we will be sat there scribbling away tomorrow, and I'm really, really, really looking forward to it. So start by keeping a food diary, write it down. Pen and paper works brilliantly. And then you can start, once you've got your baseline, you can start to mark out what are the lower protein meals or snacks, those that are lacking in meat, fish, higher protein dairy like Greek yogurt, eggs, things like lentils, and then think about the changes that you could make. So either swapping certain things out in order to bring more protein in, or perhaps having a wholesale swap in order to bring a far more protein rich meal or snack to the table. And as I said, when you're always planning your meals and building your meals and snacks, always ask yourself, what is the protein building block that I'm adding into this? What is it that I am starting with that I'm going to build everything around? I had a client comment yesterday, actually, in her check-in, where she is now very much starting every single meal or creating every single meal by going, what is the protein? That is just her default now. And she said that it's really helped to embed a change in how she eats. And it means that actually bringing protein into her diet isn't a chore because it's at the forefront of her mind. And she's creating a habit that is becoming far more natural and therefore far more sustainable for her. So ask yourself, what is the protein in this? And you can even start doing that as you're kind of doing your food diary or whatever it might be. And just think to yourself today, as you are constructing every single meal, what is the protein in this? And if you kind of go, God, there isn't actually any, that will start to highlight to you the spaces and places and meals where you can change things up. Now, that's all well and good, but how much protein do you actually need? Well, it varies. It depends. It depends upon your age. It depends upon your activity level. But as a general rule of thumb, I suggest going relatively high to my clients with kind of 1.5 to 2 grams of protein per kilo of body weight. So if you are going to now have to do some maths very quickly in my head. So that means if you are 70 kilos, then you are going to either be wanting to have 70 times 1.5. So that would be, oh my God, 105 to 140 grams of protein per day. And the best way to kind of estimate where you are right now is to take your food diary and pop it into a tracking app like MyFitnessPal or Macros and see how many grams of protein per day, per meal, per snack you are having to estimate where you are and therefore potentially where you need to get to. Now, I'd hazard a guess that you are probably on the low side because unless we focus and prioritise protein in our diet, generally we are on the low side. So, back to my initial client's comment and the conversation that we have had and are actually ongoing with at the moment about adding more protein into your diet feeling excessive. And there are two thoughts to leave you with and that I've spoken to her about today. The first isn't necessarily about adding it on top of what you're already having, but actually thinking about how you can structure your meals around protein. So having that protein first mentality, and then also thinking about what you could swap out to create space to get more protein in. So that's the first thing. And the second thing is, can you really afford not to think about and work out how you can get more protein in your diet, given the benefits of it in terms of maintaining muscle, supporting metabolism, for bone health, for regulating hormones, for enhancing your energy levels, for recovery and repair of tissues, all of that jazz. Can you really afford not to at least take the time to work out how you can inject more protein into your diet and then start to do that? Next up, in terms of what we're talking about this week, is the whole thing of a fear of injury when it comes to strength training. This is something that I hear all the time in consultations. It's a fear of injury, especially back injuries when starting strength training. And I'm not entirely sure how this fear manifested. And I could go off on one about, the patriarchy creating a fear in order to keep women out of the weights room and stuck in step classes. And I'm sure there's an element of that in there, but I won't, because otherwise I'll be here all day and I'll go off on a massive tangent. But it's a very real fear for so many women that I speak to, especially those who are slightly older and who are becoming more and more and more aware of what their body can and can't do. And I'm going to caveat that by saying what their body can and can't currently do. Do you know what? This pisses me off. I'm not pissed off with the women that say this to me, but I'm pissed off with it because this perception, and I'm going to call it misconception, keeps so many women unnecessarily locked out of the benefits of strength training. Because frankly, strength training is absolute bloody magic. It really is. I'm going to run through the benefits of it really quickly. So first up, bone density. So during menopause, women can lose up to 20% of their bone density in the first 5 to 7 years after menopause. So we see a rapid decrease in bone density, and that increases our risks of osteoporosis. Now, strength training can counteract this. Studies have shown that strength training could increase bone density by 1 to 3% annually. So it helps keep your bones strong and healthy. And you might say, oh, but it might decline by 20% and only increases it by 1 to 3%. The sooner you start, the better prepared you are. But even if you are postmenopausal, there are still those benefits of increasing bone density annually to help keep your bones strong and healthy and reduce the risk of osteoporosis. Then there's muscle mass and metabolism. So as we age, our muscle mass naturally declines and we naturally have a slowing down of metabolism. But strength training, resistance training, helps to maintain and helps to build that muscle mass. And research shows that women who engage in regular resistance training can increase their muscle mass by 2 to 4% over a period of 3 to 4 months. And that in turn boosts their metabolism, and that can help with weight management as well. So, muscle mass and metabolism on top of bone health. Brilliant, 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 brilliant. Then you've got joint health, and strength training strengthens the muscles that you have around your joints. It helps to keep them more stable, and that in itself reduces the risk of injury. And that's so important as we get older, and so important for those who are experiencing joint pain due to osteoarthritis, which affects 1 in 4 women over the age of 50. So 25% of women over the age of 50. At the moment, the latest programming block that my clients are doing for Thrive Together, I can't even say it, Thrive Together 360 small group PT is very much concentrating on building that strength in muscles around joints by the type of training that we're doing. And it's so important as we get older. Additionally, strength training has got huge benefits and positive implications in terms of reducing the symptoms of depression and anxiety, which become more prevalent during perimenopause and menopause. And a study that was in the Journal of Women and Aging found that women who participated in regular strength training experienced a 20 to 30% reduction in depressive symptoms. Pretty staggering numbers. Obviously, there are other benefits from a health point of view. So strength training can improve your cardiovascular health by lowering your blood pressure and improving your cholesterol levels, which means that the heart doesn't need to work as hard. And women who lift weights at least twice a week can lower the risk of heart disease by 20 to 40%. So far I've talked about bone health, muscle mass, metabolism, mental health, joint strength, cardiovascular health, reducing heart disease. Unbelievable. Now, a lot of that is stuff that is hidden and you can't necessarily see, but then there are other things that you can definitely feel the benefit of when you are resistance training. And those are things like balance and fall prevention. So as we age, the risk of falls increase. Okay, I think we can all appreciate that. And strength training can significantly improve our balance and our coordination. So imagine somebody accidentally nudges you from behind and you take a giant step forward to stop yourself from falling. If you've been strength and resistance training and you've been doing some lunges and some split squats and things like that, your body is used to that movement and is strong enough to effectively, when you take a big step forward, to support yourself. If you haven't been doing that, you're less likely to be able to support yourself. So it's no surprise that research shows that strength training can reduce the risk of falls by up to 30%. And that's hugely important for maintaining independence as we age, because one of the biggest things that effectively, I suppose, marks somebody's decline is if they fall and break a bone, and then the recovery from that reduces independence, and then it can be a bit of a slippery slope from that point on. So balance and fall prevention is hugely important. So there are a huge number of pros when it comes to strength training, compared to what I think is a total misconception of a con. And that is a fear of injury stopping women in particular getting involved in strength training. But I get it. I absolutely get it, because the thought of lifting weights can be intimidating, especially if you've never set foot in a gym before or done anything with free weights before. So, as I said, the number one concern I hear when it comes to injury is I'm concerned about my back. And I heard this yesterday, actually. It was in a session with a new client. It was their first session. And it's a genuine concern if it's in your head. But is it a valid concern? I don't think it is necessarily a valid concern. There's a chance of injury in absolutely everything that we do in day-to-day life. But looking at the data, and this is from a study that was published in the Journal of Strength and Conditioning Research, the overall injury rate for resistance and strength training, so weight training, is just 1 to 3 injuries per 1,000 hours of training, 1,000 hours of practice. And if you compare that to running, because I think you need some context, if you compare that to running, running has an injury rate of 2.5 to 12.1 injuries per 1,000 hours. So that's 1 to 3 injuries per 1,000 hours versus 2.5 to 12.1. And then team sports like football, for example, the injury rate there is 4 to 8 injuries per 1,000 hours. So strength training is one of the safer forms of exercise that you can do. And it's not unusual for the women that I speak to who have a fear of injury when it comes to strength training to have no qualms about running a couple of times a week. So they're already doing something that is more dangerous from an injury, theoretically more dangerous from an injury point of view than strength training. So there is less to fear from strength training than there is from running or football. Now, a bit of anecdotal evidence from myself to put it further into perspective. I have hurt my back twice in my life. And when I say hurt it, it's like I was fairly immobile, although I kept moving because movement is medicine. But I have hurt my back twice, and both of those times have happened since I have been resistance training, since I've been strength training. Neither of those times were anything to do with strength and resistance training. I was not in the gym. I was not deadlifting. I was not squatting. I was not using weights in any capacity. Both times, I was putting on a welly. Yep, a welly. I was putting on a welly and I hurt my back. Now, my hypothesis as to why that is all to do with concentration. When I'm training, I am thinking about what I am doing. I am concentrating about what I am doing. I am going through the motions of what I need to do in order to lift in a safe, controlled way. When I was putting that welly on, I was not concentrating in the slightest. My mind was elsewhere. I was distracted and I was trying to control, can't remember the first time, but the second time, I was trying to control my small human from running off across a car park, and I was trying to get my welly boot on pretty damn quick before they scarpered, and my back went. So, based on me, I am statistically more likely to put my back out putting on a welly than I am weight training. So, first up, strength training is far, far, far safer than you might think. And secondly, there are measures that you can take to make it even safer. And I'm going to run you through those now. So, always start with a warm-up. Always start with a warm-up. Warming up is going to increase your heart rate. It's going to increase the blood flow to the muscles. It's going to prep your body for exercise. So, very simply, think of warming up by going on the rower, going on the bike, going on the treadmill. That can be walking. If you are not in a gym, that could be having a brisk walk or a light jog outside. And then doing some dynamic stretching. Now, dynamic stretching is just basically doing a movement that mimics the movements that you are going to do in your session, and it takes your muscles through the full range of motion in a controlled fashion. So, for example, you might be doing some squats with a weight in your session. So, as part of your warm-up, your dynamic stretching could be some bodyweight squats. Basically, you're going to take the muscles you're going to use in your session and you are going to put them through that full range of motion in a controlled fashion. Now, it absolutely blows my mind the number of people who I see get to the gym and go straight into a strength training session without any form of warm-up. Do that and you definitely have increased your chances of getting injured, having an injury. Warm up first. The next thing is learn proper form. Now, there's two reasons for this. The first one is to help ensure that you are using the muscles intended by the movement and the exercise that you're doing, so that you're getting the most out of it. And the next thing is, if you are using the muscles that are intended, then you're going to decrease and reduce any risk of injury. Now, if you're new to resistance training and strength training, my top tip would be, take advantage of what is on offer at your gym. Have that induction. Ask lots of questions. Have some sessions with a personal trainer or a coach so that you understand what the movements are and you're able to learn the basics. You will get so much out of it rather than kind of floundering round and worrying that you're going to get injured. You will learn to do the basics well, and you will learn to do the basics well in a way that is going to train your body but also protect it from injury. But injury is going to be is less likely than if you were to go out running. So that's my top tip. If you're new to it, work with a trainer or a coach to learn the basics first and foremost. Start light. I always start all of my clients with light weights that they are able to do comfortably, so that they are able to master the movements and do more reps fundamentally. They get more reps under their belts. They get more confident and competent in the movement before we start to pop those weights up. And as you become more confident and more competent and your strength builds and your confidence builds, you can gradually increase the weight. So start lighter, get more reps under your belt. And on that, once you have got that confidence, that competence, don't go too heavy too quick so that your form becomes compromised. You'll get far more out of doing more reps well than fewer reps poorly with a heavier weight. So challenge yourself, but do it in a way where you're still getting that full range of movement, and rather than taking it too heavy. Next thing, listen to your body. Pain is a signal. If something doesn't feel right, then stop, because there is a difference between the discomfort of effort, which is, oh my word, my muscles feel really, really tired and fatigued, and they're a little bit burny. And then there's the sharp pain of injury. I was just pointing at my right arm because I've got a bit of a shoulder injury at the moment. Nothing to do actually with training. I think I've actually done it trying to take a jumper off. But there you go. Again, wellies, jumpers, bit of a disaster when it comes to getting myself dressed. Anyway, there's this difference between the discomfort of effort and the sharp injury of pain. So don't push yourself through the latter. Recognize when you get that feeling and stop what you're doing. Also, there are certain movements and exercises that you might just prefer versus another. So listen to your body in that way as well. So for example, I love a leg press, but I'm not a fan of a barbell back squat because of how I'm anatomically built. But for all intents and purposes, they essentially do the same thing for my legs. So I will leg press rather than back squat. So, listen to your body in terms of what you like as well and what feels comfortable. Focus on engaging your core for every single movement. Now, a strong core will support your back, and it is very much, that strong core is the linchpin for everything. That doesn't mean you need to be training your core specifically doing a bazillion sit-ups and crunches and bird dogs and dead bugs and anything else. If you focus on your core being strong and engaged and locked in when you are doing your other resistance training, strength training movements, you will train your core. You will get it stronger. But get your core stronger and it will enhance everything else. And then stay consistent and be patient. Consistency is key when it comes to building muscle, overall fitness, but also remaining injury-free, because with that consistency comes a greater range of movement, a greater level of competence. And those two things will always protect you against injury. So back to my client yesterday who was worried about her back in her first session. She said this before she'd actually done anything. So I knew that this was a very real fear, and we'd spoken about it in her consultation as well. But what I would encourage you to do is to remain open-minded and curious as to what your body could do, not what it might not be able to do. And that's a bit of a reframe and thinking about things from a glass half full rather than glass half empty perspective. And the reason I say this is because I know that you will surprise yourself if you remain open-minded about things. That is it for today. If you've got any questions or anything has cropped up from today's podcast that you would like to chat about some more, then please do get in touch. And if there are any things that you would like me to cover in future episodes, then let me know, because you too are part of the squad. So today we have covered how you can get more protein into your diet and some practical tips as to how you can work out how you could do that. And then we've also covered how you can remain injury-free when it comes to strength training, but also why strength training is so bloody brilliant. Thank you for listening. I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope it has provided you with some answers that are going to help you on your health and fitness journey. And join me next week for another episode.